We talked about using shot reverse shot and the rule of thirds to make the audience feel involved in a conversation between two characters. The additional consideration is the angle of your actor's eye line to the camera. The closer or further away we are from where the actors are looking, the more or less personally involved we feel in the emotions of the scene. Let's take a look.
Stand down. I think you should sit down. I have some news for you. The baby isn't yours. In fact, it's not even mine. That's right. The baby is a cyborg.
Cool.
Not bad. The character has a lot of emotion in her voice, but she's looking far away from us, denying our ability to feel personally involved. It feels like we're watching the conversation from far away.
Sandel,
Yes.
I have some news for you, and I think you should sit down. The baby isn't yours. Okay? In fact, it's not even mine. That's right. The baby is a cyborg.
Here we're getting enough of an angle to see more of the expression on Laurie's face. Her delivery is the same, but because we're closer to her eye line, we feel more connected to what she's saying.
Sandel, I think you should sit down. Because I have some news for you, and you're not gonna like it. The baby isn't yours. Actually, it's not even mine. The baby is a cyborg.
Here, we're close enough to the line between Laurie and Sandel that we feel like we're almost looking Laurie in the eyes. This draws us into the character's emotions and expression to the point where we can't help but feel involved. Each of these decisions has their place and purpose, so keep in mind how proximity to eyeline affects how the audience relates to the character's emotions. The longer focal length at the top flattens the image almost to the point of removing our ability to visually determine the distance between objects. The lower shot is close up to the point of dramatic distortion, exaggerating the size of the knife and making everything feel very in your face. But these are only two of the choices we have available to us. This lower right shot, for instance, was taken with a camera even closer. The hand and knife now look huge, and even tiny movements the actress makes are going to be sweeping across the frame. This shot is from the middle of the camera's zoom range and is probably a good balance between the two. Remember though, each of these lengths is going to have a different effect on the feeling people are going to get from watching your film, so the right choice is always the choice that creates the feeling that you want. The same perspective distortions occur in situations involving multiple subjects. One place people run into problems with perspective is when shooting over-the-shoulder shots. Let's look at that over-the-shoulder shot from before again. In this first shot, we've put the camera right behind Sandel and zoomed out, which makes his shoulder look enormous and take up way too much visual space in the frame. Laurie may be the same size in each of these shots, but in this second one, we've moved all the way back and zoomed in. The image is flattened to the point of destroying any references we would gain to gauge the distance between the two subjects. Here's a shot from the middle of our focal range. Sandel looks a little bigger than Laurie, but not too big, and the size they take up in the frame in comparison to each other gives us a healthy balance of distance and perspective. Perspective affects more than distance between objects and people. It affects the very look of your subjects as well. The closer you are to a subject, the more their facial features are going to be emphasized. The further back you shoot from, the more facial features are going to be flattened. Here, we've put the lens at a short focal length and shot up close to Laurie, which has the effect of exaggerating and emphasizing her closest features, her lips, her nose, and the front of her face compared to the way her hair falls. Here we've moved back and zoomed in, and are shooting near the middle of the lens focal range. Laurie's facial features have been flattened a bit, and her features are closer in proportion to how we normally see them ourselves in real life. A standard focal length for portrait photography is between 85 and 105 millimeters when measuring in standard 35 millimeter measurements, and we're shooting just a bit above that here. This third image is backed up even further and zoomed in all the way to the longest focal length this lens can reach. Laurie's facial features are flattened even further, arguably to the point of not providing enough perspective. Again, as always, make your distance from the subject an intentional choice to accomplish what you want your shot to achieve in the film. Beyond perspective, another major effect of the focal length is the angle of view, which is a measurement of how much angle you can view. It's tied into magnification and so forth, but we're specifically going to talk about background composition now. Look at this framing, up close with the lens wide. A short focal length here gives us a wide shot, meaning a large angle of view. The wide angle of view not only means we see our subject right in front of us, but that we see a lot of the background expanding around them as well. Now we've moved back and shot with a longer focal length, giving us a narrow field of view. Accordingly, we barely see any of the background compared to before, even though our subject is again the same size. The question is, how much of the background do you want the viewer to see? Do you want to attach the subject to the environment they're in, or close in on the subject with less background distraction? Let's take a look at this shot. We have the frame mostly divided up into thirds. We have Laura in the upper right-hand corner, where the eyes are going to go to the most important thing in the frame. She has look space over towards the left to whatever it is that she's speaking to, and we're pretty well in front of her, so we have a pretty good look at her eye line. There's one thing about this, though, that's going to seem like a problem to you, and that's going to be all that empty space on the left side of the frame. You're going to want to break that space up. You're going to be on set, and you're going to think, there's something wrong up there. We need to throw something up there, like a poster or something else, just to break up all the visual space. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do... Alright, look at it. Yes, you've broken up the left side of the frame, but who among you can possibly look at the subject now as opposed to staring at Tom Green's horrible, horrible face on the left side of the frame? No one. You've put a big, red, black, colorful, outstanding, and visually striking element that you don't want the audience to look at in the frame. So remember that eye lines, perspectives, angles of view, and all the other things we've discussed regarding aesthetics are going to change the way the audience responds to the things that you put in front of them. It's going to change the way they respond to the characters and change the way they respond to the story. So make intentional choices. So in conclusion, this has been Joshua Efron discussing film aesthetics. Go make some films.